Minister ahead of the reshuffle. Tim Wilson, Peter Khalil with me now. And Tim Wilson, as I say, Sky News sources within the government have confirmed to me that the Attorney-General will become the next High Commissioner to the UK. I know he's a friend of yours, a good friend of yours, and replacing Alexander Downer at Stoke Lodge in London.
Well, I haven't heard that. You've only got sources. Ultimately, it's been rumoured for a long time. It's a decision for the Prime Minister. If that's the case, then, of course, I'll congratulate the Attorney-General and wish him all the best on his new endeavours. But as I said, it's only a rumour or sources close to Sky News at this point, so let's wait and see. But obviously there's going to be a reshuffle this week. The reality is, the government's always need a bit of a refresh mid-term. It's an opportunity to bring in new, fresh, hungry talent who are enthusiastic to make sure that they drive the government's agenda and connect directly to Australians. That's what I want to see from the government, so that we can be in the best position to smash Bill Shorten at the next federal election. Worst kept secret in the history of politics. George had gone over to London several times to measure the curtains. Everyone knew that he was going. Tim could be the next Attorney-General, Kieran. There you go, right in front on your show.
Let's look at the... yeah, that's right. We've just got Peter Khalil sources. Let's go to Tim Wilson on the MyInfo budget update today. Tim, in terms of the overall numbers, presentational is the way it's been described by Andrew Charlton, the former advisor to Kevin Rudd, but encouraging to see it heading in the right direction, Tim Wilson. It's resolutely heading the country in the right direction. What MyInfo is showing is that not only is the government's commitment to cut spending being realised, it's being driven heavily by getting people off the welfare system, where they're consumers of tax dollars, into jobs so they can be self-supporting and becoming tax contributors. This is how you drive reform and enable the country to stand on its own 2 feet and address the legacy that we inherited by the previous government. It's also being driven by continuing to attract business investment and grow the economy so that we can be the dynamic, forward-looking economy for the 21st century that Australia needs us to be. This is a huge success for the Treasurer and the Prime Minister, but it's part of a trend which is going to continue if we're able to continue to deliver the tax reform we need for this country and delivering the jobs for Australians that are needed for this country. Peter Khalil, this is better than where things had been projected in May, and it looks like, well, things are healthy to an extent. You've got company profits feeding into this, and also employment remains strong. The broader parameters look pretty good. 1,000 new jobs a day, Kieran. I mean, it's pretty extraordinary numbers. 1,000 flowers bloom. Tim, just remarkably good talking points. I mean, what have they been doing for 4 years, Kieran? Under this government, under their watch, debt has actually doubled since Labor was in power. The deficit's tripled, by the way, as well, and debt has doubled, and we've had the highest debt on record this year and next year. And what does Scott Morrison say? He says, oh, we're not going to use the national credit card anymore to buy the groceries. No, actually, what we're going to do is we're going to put a tax hike on working class and middle class Australians to get a $23 billion cut to the debt, and we're going to give multinationals a big tax cut. That's what he's going to do. Oh, and we're going to cut university education funding as well. I mean, it's disgraceful. I mean, these guys are they celebrate anything. You know, they get a swing against them in Bennelong. They celebrate that. They're talking about cutting debt by $23 billion by giving a tax hike to 7 million Australians, and they celebrate that. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely true, Kieran. The government is celebrating. MyInfo is delivering 1,000 new jobs to Australians every single day. The opportunity to make sure that more Australians are in jobs, being able to take care of themselves, their families, pay their mortgages, and be able to be contributors to this great nation. 1,000 new jobs a day is not something to sniff at. Opens up the prospect of tax cuts to be celebrated. Sorry? Tim Wilson? Opens up the prospect of tax cuts. As I said to Andrew Charlton, the government set the tax to GDP ratio at 23.9%. That's the cap. It's going to hit that, I think, from memory in 21-22. So that once it hits that point, there's obviously scope beyond that from bracket creep to start returning that back to income earners. I know that's something close to your heart. Well, when you create 1,000 new jobs a day,
You do get more people into employment, which means that you can share the burden across the whole of the Australian community more than focusing on a narrow few. So yes, it opens the opportunity for tax reform and the potential to alleviate tax pressure on families and households. That's a fundamentally good thing. It's something to be celebrated, because 1,000 more people today than yesterday and the day before that were able to stand on their own 2 feet and take care of their families.
Yeah. Peter Khalil, to you on the broader economic prospects into the new year. You'd welcome the fact that the labour market is strong, even though wage growth is sluggish. Things are holding up quite well in the post-mining boom world in this country.
Yeah, you've touched on a really important point there, Kieran. There is wage stagnation. We've seen that. That's a real issue. There's casualisation across the workforce that's putting pressure on families that Tim says that they're trying to help, when in fact they're actually going to increase their tax bill, if you like, for those working class families. About 7 million Australians are going to get hit with a tax hike. So, you know, we on this issue, it's a philosophical difference. We actually believe that yes, of course we've got to repair the budget. Of course we've got to reduce debt. And we would have hoped that the government would have done this earlier rather than 4 years into government. But the point is, you do it with budget repair that's fair. You don't hit working class and middle class families.
Peter and Tim, I want to get your thoughts now on the big news at the weekend. Tim Wilson, the by-election in Bennelong. How significant is that in your mind? The fact that John Alexander was able to hold that swing to, I think at last check, around 5%. The two-party result, 55-45 in the end, Tim.
That's right. I think it was a huge victory and boost of confidence for the government off the back of New England, off the back of the postal survey. Each result is, of course, unique, but the overriding theme that comes through from when I talk to my constituents and I talk to people all across the country is people want the government to get on with it. They want stability, predictability, and for the government to see its full term and deliver for the Australian people. I think that's what we've seen in every single one of these ballots, and it's a very clear vindication of where the government is going, but it has more work to do. No one's going to try and pretend otherwise, and that's what the new year brings, is a fresh slate and the opportunity to focus on the economy, on tax reform, around making sure we can build this nation's future. But JA is a great candidate. He's done a fantastic job, and he should be immensely proud of the result that he got.
Peter Khalil, I think while a swing against the government and to the opposition, you welcome that, but I know that a number of your colleagues that I've spoken to are disappointed it wasn't larger than what it was, given the amount of resources and the calibre of candidate and the amount of time the opposition leader spent there.
Oh, look, I think, you know, if you look at the figures, a 7% swing on primary votes to Christina, and she ran a magnificent campaign. That's about 1 in 8 residents or constituents of Bennelong who voted Liberal last time who changed their vote to Labor. So that's a significant swing on the primary and about 5% on the 2PP. So it was always long odds, and she's done a remarkable job. She's a fantastic candidate. And look, I should say also congratulations to JA.
Now take the Senate spot left by Sam Dastyari, in your view?
Do you know that I'm from Victoria, Kieran? I don't know what they do up there in New South Wales. It's a decision for the New South Wales
Party. You're not a Victorian
Senate
MP, are you? You're a member of the federal parliament.
That's true. But the New South Wales Party will make those decisions about their candidates. And I have...
What's your personal view?
In the room. About the new Senate spot?
View? About Christina Keneally. Would she be a good senator, do you think?
My personal view is that Christina is she was a fantastic candidate. She's an intelligent, fantastic leader who's been Premier of New South Wales, so she has experience, qualification, intelligence, and a lot to contribute to public life.
So you think she should run for
well, it's not my decision.
Or Bennelong or what? that's not an answer.
Well, I think he's given a pretty good endorsement of Christina Keneally for the Senate. Stephen and Peter and Tim, thanks so much. We're going to go to Stephen Koukoulas now, economist, for another look at the mid-year.